Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the hot races here. Let's go and talk about the Ciscomani race. Were you surprised the way it turned out?
I was surprised to see Wynn do as well as she did, given that Siskamani is an incumbent. He's got high name recognition. And she was, I mean, the last results I saw, maybe less than a percentage point off. I don't know if those have been updated more recently. She was really presenting herself as sort of a stronger, more Trump-aligned alternative to Siskamani. She was arguing that he was a little too moderate, a little too bipartisan friendly. And I was actually surprised that she did as well as she did, given that Trump endorsed candidates in 2022 didn't do all so well. So I think that could be a good sign for Trump in 2024 to have Trump endorsed candidates maybe overperforming a little bit. Although she didn't, ultimately didn't actually win. It came very close.
So the big race obviously be Ciscomani versus Angle. I mean, how do you think that's going to play out?
Well, obviously, there was enough discontent with Siscomani that he nearly lost his primary, so that doesn't bode that well for him. Although, the general election electorate is a little more moderate, more broad. Siscomani has the incumbency, he has the name recognition, so I could see him doing a repeat, but it's gonna depend, and it's gonna depend sort of how top of the ticket voters are feeling about these down ballot races.
When we talk about some of the more local races, I mean, there was a lot of contention with the Pima County attorney's race, for example. Were you surprised that Laura Conover won so decisively?
Well, again, she's known. She's got their name recognition. So it was a big victory for her since I don't think she faces a opponent at all in the general. Is that right? So I think that's partially why this was such a hard fought race. But again, she is the best known candidate and probably would have been the safest bet if I had been betting on the race, which I don't.
Okay. Do you think that? Oh, okay. Um, what do you think will be the big issues that'll be in the congressional race?
Well, in Arizona, they're going to make it all about the economy and immigration as usual. So same old, same old, same old. And it's going to have to do with, how people in Congress are going to either support or oppose Trump and Harris's agenda. I think this is going to be a very nationalized race where Harris and Trump will be really setting the agenda and partially having, two really salient issues on the ballot, abortion and immigration. Those things are going to enter into the conversation a little more than they otherwise would have. But I think those are the two biggest things facing Arizonans right now. There's a lot of talk about inflation, cost of living, as well as securing the border.
Okay, so I know you don't know a ton about the sheriff's race, but let me ask you this question. You have a Republican, probably Heather Lappin. Looks like she's going to win. I don't
Yeah.
think it's been called yet. And then you have Nanos. I don't know the history here. How do Republicans and Democrats, how do they normally fare in Pima County, for example?
Pima County is typically more of a liberal leaning blue county. It always has been, and it's leaning more blue over the last several election cycles. One important trend in Arizona generally is that it's one of the most quickly urbanizing states in the country, meaning that rural counties are losing population and urban counties are gaining them rapidly, especially Maricopa County, of course, but Pima County as well. And as those urban counties become denser, they typically do start to vote more heavily in favor of Democratic candidates. So that's going to really help Nanos in this race, as well as all the local Democrats in Pima County.
Wow, so it sounds like you're thinking that in the future where you tend to have Republicans kind of dominate the House and the Senate, that could begin to change over time.
It could. I mean, one trend that I've been seeing in Arizona over the last several election cycles is that the counties that are turning redder are also losing population at the fastest rates. So if you look at the real red counties in Arizona, these are typically rural counties that are shrinking considerably. So for example, we know Phoenix is one of the fastest growing cities in America, yet Arizona hasn't been gaining congressional seats because the overall state population isn't growing that rapidly relative to other states. Instead, what we're seeing are Arizonans from rural areas moving into Phoenix, moving into the Phoenix suburbs, moving into Pima County. And as that happens, we do typically see votes trending toward more Democratic candidates.
My final question is this. What do you find that Arizonans tend to talk about more? Is it the economy, is it the border, or abortion? Which one of those three, or if you could rank them from what you've done a lot of polling, what's the most
Yeah.
important, do you think?
Sure. Well, in polling, we typically will keep the questions separate. So I'll say something like, how important is abortion? How important is the economy? How important is the border? And everybody says, extremely, extremely, extremely. All of these issues are extremely important to Arizonans. Now, of course, the economy typically will be the most salient issue for people because they do feel it so personally. But both immigration and abortion are on the ballot this November. So that is going to keep those issues very salient, and it's going to ensure that candidates are talking about them even more than they would have otherwise. So I'm going to have to plead three-way tie here. I mean, all three of these issues are very important to Arizona voters, and they're all issues that we're going to be hearing a lot of from candidates at all levels.